and this and that. But actually, patience is state of mind. It's state of mind. Just like others. Patience is when your mind is not disturbed by that person's actions and behavior. To be able to keep your mind quiet, peaceful, undisturbed. While your mind is undisturbed, peaceful, calm, then whether you take actions or not, whether you respond or not, that is something else. But when your mind is calm, quiet, undisturbed by that person's actions and behavior, that is where the patience is. And while your mind is calm and peaceful and undisturbed, maybe you might think, oh, if I let these persons to do that, either to me or someone else, that will be harmful for that person itself and to the person who is being harm is done. Therefore, I should stand up. I should not let this happen. So then maybe you might respond to them. Take actions to stop such behavior. Instead of being passive, become very active. That is patience. As long as your mind is coming from that peaceful, undisturbed, calm mind. From outside, it looks like that person is impatient. But because he's standing up, responding, because he's responding back, not allowing that person to roll over. Instead, standing up for that. Instead, standing up for the injustice, the suffering, the harm done there. It might look impatient from outside, but it is a patience because that response is coming from that stable, undisturbed, quiet mind. On the other hand, as I mentioned before, when someone criticized me or someone shouted at me or slapped at me, I might be very passive, not response, but inside, a lot of anger, lot of anger. Even though I'm not expressing it, even though I'm not showing it, but inside there is a lot of volcano of anger. My mind is disturbed. How dare you do that? That is impatience. From outside, it looks patience, but inside, in reality, is impatience. Because your mind is disturbed. Your mind is agitated. So whether you take any actions or not take any actions, still is impatience. Either you take actions or not take actions, whether you respond or whether you don't respond, out of that state of mind, it is impatience. On the other side, when your mind is calm, peaceful by that person's behavior, whether you respond or not respond, is patience. Because if you are responding from that state of mind. If you are not responding, you are not responding from that state of mind. And so that is important for us to be able to be clear on what really patience is. Because I often get cautions, not only me, I also see a lot of time people get a lot of cautions. and people asking questions. If you are patient and then someone is take advantage of you, exploit you or others and harm, and then how should we do it? How can we be a patient? You know? And those kind of questions come because there's misunderstanding of patience, what really patience is. Because they misunderstood the patience to be the actions, whether you respond or not respond, or how you respond, instead of seeing the patient's really state of mind. And from that state of mind, then you can decide with your wisdom whether it's best to respond or not to respond. If it is best to respond, how to respond? This way, that way. Gentle way, more aggressive way, less aggressive way. What is the best? Out of that patience, then you use your wisdom. What is the best for, yourself, others, in long term? What is the best? Is it best for me to respond or not to respond? If it's best to respond, what will be the best way to respond? Which way, how to respond is? Those comes later, using your wisdom to respond, not respond. If you want to respond, how to respond. But first, you need to have that patience, the still mind, calm mind. And only when you have that kind of quiet, calm mind of patience, you are able to make better judgmental, whether to respond or not to respond. If you respond, what will be the best? You will be able to think properly. You will be able to utilize your examining, reasoning mind. And it will be more effective, whether you decided to respond or not to respond. It will be more effective because, it comes from better judgmental mind because when we are impatient and when mind is overtaken by impatience, anger, frustration, hateful, then we cannot become rationalized. We cannot use reasoning. Emotion too strong. We can't see what is the best, what is good or bad. We can't really make those good judgments at that moment. And a lot of time we do things that we regret later. But, so therefore that quiet, calm mind, peaceful mind is so important, and that comes through the patience. That patience is that your mind being undisturbed by the person's behavior, actions, or by situations. Your mind undisturbed, unagitated by the situations. Difficulties, and so forth, So, and one of the main obstacles that hurt and harm our compassions, loving kindness, bodhicitta is anger, hateful feelings, ill will feelings, and therefore to protect ourselves and to protect our love, compassion, bodhicitta from such harmful and disturbing emotions, then we need the patience. And so, mm, mm. And therefore, as Shantideva said, in terms of direct harm done among the emotions, among the disturbing negative emotions, the most direct harm that is done is by the anger. Therefore, he said there is no negative as powerful as anger. Because when you have anger, immediately is very strongly, directly harms yourself and put others in the harmful way. And to counter that anger, we need the patience. To counter that anger, we need the patience. And therefore, as Shantideva says, among all the virtues and among all the hardship, endurance, hardship, there is no more powerful than the patience to protect. So the practice of patience is protect you, it protects others from the danger. It protects you from immediate danger and long-term dangers. It protects others from immediate and also long-term dangers. Even if we look just recently, what happened in DC, that a lot of people damage others, lost, people have lost life, 5 people's life have been lost. So they did a lot of damage. Not only it damaged others and hurt others, it hurt themselves. Now they are in trouble. Now they are in trouble. They put themselves in danger now, trouble. They are experiencing the consequences of that behavior, that actions. Not only themselves, now they have put their families also in the dangers. Harm to the family as not only themselves, their families as harm. So immediately, and that kind of behavioral actions is because there is so much anger. It's the result of anger. Because there's so much anger that manifested in such action, such behavior, is a result of the inside emotions of anger. So it is an example, good example, how it harms and hurt others and themselves. And immediately, of course, when you are at that state, such an anger state, absolutely there's no peace. And you can see with their expression when you see interview with them, the way they speak, you can see how their mind is disturbed, how unhappy, how miserable because of that emotions. And of course, that we all have experience with ourselves too. It's such a painful, it's such a pain when you have so much anger, hatred, ill will feelings. Immediately there is pain in your mind. Immediately, there's miserable in your mind and in your life. There is no peace at all. So immediately there is that harm that destroy your peace, mental peace. And then due to that, you take certain actions, and now later you are experiencing the consequences of that. Now many of them are getting arrested, charged, and many of them are going to lose their job. And it will be very challenging for them to find job in the future once they have all this record. So it is going to affect individual as well as their families in so many different. So immediately you experience the pain, and now long-term consequences and suffering, that is the pain and suffering that is going to come. And then not to talk about the negative karma created and the consequences of that negative karma in the futures. Immediately now we can see the consequences in so many different ways. And that just clearly shows how harmful, how damaging that negative emotions of such as anger is. And to protect that kind of emotions, such a destructive, harmful emotion, then the patience, we need the patience. Patience is like the wall that protects you from that harm. It protects you now, futures, all the time. It protects your wisdom, common sense. As I mentioned, when you are strongly emotionally involved, with anger, then a lot of time we cannot use our cognitive ability, reasoning. Reasoning doesn't work. When you are angry, if someone tries to reason it makes you more upset. Isn't it? Someone trying to reason you why you shouldn't get upset and why you are wrong and why you are mistaken or this. You can't listen, you can't listen. You get more upset. Your mind is not open. Your mind becomes closed. And so it protects, the patient, protect loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, protect from immediate pain, long-term pain. It protects us from our ability to reason, the ability to use reasoning, rationalize, use our wisdom. So it is protecting the wisdom, all of that, it does a lot of things. And it helps to increase and improve loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind. So I think patience is one of the qualities, very important quality that we need in our life. To have more peaceful life, to have a better relationship. A lot of time in many of the relationship, because either both of them are impatient, they don't have enough patience, or sometimes one of them is impatience, get easily frustrated, easily impatient, easily angry, and then we get off in argument, fight, and then that build up one argument, two argument, three argument, four argument, and not being able to let it go, and all build up, hold up, and then one day there's no space for anymore, and it explodes. Then it explodes. And once it explodes, then you have all this list, that you have been kind of suppressing. And all of those lists comes now, You thought you didn't have any list. Now you find out all the lists. And so for our own individual more peace, for peace of our family, for better relationship, and definitely to be able to maintain love, compassion, bodhicitta. The patience is so crucial and important. Practice or inner quality that we need to develop. So then in terms of the patience, as Shantideva and in all the lamrims, they explain about 3 different categories of the patience. Patient with someone who is harmful, who try to harm, who try to harm intentionally, unintentionally, either trying to harm ourselves, our friends, our families, or others, and then patience with being patient with the challenges, difficulties, when we encounter and face difficult situations, challenging situations, when we encounter a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, so that is when again our mind gets disturbed, so then again being patient with all of that, and then being patient with our virtues and the practice, So how to practice the patience? We kind of seem to know that patience is important qualities that we need to develop, and we want to develop, and we understand to a certain degree, at least on theoretically intellectual level, anger is harmful and not helpful and harmful, but how to do that, how to overcome the anger. And we can overcome the anger by practicing the patience. How to practice the patience, so how to practice the patience. If someone slaps on your right face, you show the left face. That is how we practice the patience. No. Again, that idea is more physical, not mental. Do you get it? Here we are talking about more internal, mental. Because even though someone slapped me here and I put this one, but inside I might think, I'm going to get him later. Let him, because everyone is watching. I don't want to give any impression I'm impatient. I want to give a good impression. I'm patient. So when he slide here, I put this one back. But let me get outside of here, then I will make him sure what it is. You know, so that isn't patience at all. That isn't patience at all. You know, patience is a state of mind. You know, so as I already mentioned, is state that when your mind is undisturbed, unagitated, calm by that person's behavior and actions, harmful behavior and actions, you know. So then, you know, as Chandra explains, you know, there are many different ways of meditating, thinking, analyzing to keep our mind less disturbed, less angry, less agitated. One way of doing that is, you know, as Shantideva said, you know, if someone is engaging in some kind of harmful behavior and actions, you know, out of that, maybe he or she is, you know, trying to humiliate you, you know, put you down, you know, shout at you, you know, or even physically maybe become violent. Yourself, your friends, your family, or someone else, you know, when we see that, then that really kind of piss off us, you know, make us upset and angry and disturb our mind. So what is disturbing us in terms of directly harming the person, yourself or others who has been harmed by such physical behavior or actions? What is the direct cause and conditions, for that pain? In terms of, you know, shouting, you know, criticizing, you know, humiliating with certain kind of way of saying things and like that, you know, is their speech. That is really the cause, the direct cause, is their speech. If they are being physically violent, then it's their body with their hand that is hurting us, that is being painful. So, you know, if we think of what is that directly that is hurting and harming us in terms of external conditions, it is the speech or the hand, to example. So if we try to be upset and angry because it is making us painful and bringing suffering, pain, we should be angry and upset to the speech and to the hand, not the persons. That is what is really the direct object that give us the pain. If someone hit you with his hand, punch us, it is his hand. If someone said nasty is his mouth, that word, so there's no reason to get upset and angry with the persons. And then, as he mentioned, but maybe we might think, well, that punch doesn't come by itself. There was someone, the person who punched it. The speech doesn't come from nowhere, from the sky. It didn't fall from the sky. It came from that person's. So there is someone who is behind, even though the direct pain is experienced from the punch of the hand and the words or the mouth from that, the word that, but there is someone behind that which made that speech to come and that hand to go in certain way and punch you. If that is the case, then there is someone again behind that is pushing that person to do that. That's their delusions. That is their delusions. If that person does not have that delusions, he will never punch. He will never say those nasty things. And that person's become aggressive and violent only when that person is delusional. Only when that person is delusional, when that person is, upset, angry, whatever, when those negative emotions take over them. So with that understanding, realizing, then you might not agree with that action, but you might feel compassion for that person instead of anger. Because that person itself is suffering. That person itself is suffering because that person is overtaken by that, anger, hatred, ill will feelings. And that person doesn't want to be in that state, but he or she has no control. Sudden cause and condition happen, and that kind of emotion, due to strong imprint from the past, that emotion just arises, and he or she has no control and act that in that way. So he or she is really suffering because of that emotions. And that behavior, that actions is a result of such emotions. It helps to be, even with what, when I see what is happening in DC, what has happened in the DC, when I really try to see, where that come from, such behavior, such actions, such a violent behavior actions, where it is coming from, it's come from there's a lot of anger. Those anger come from many other things, and they don't know how to control that anger. They have no tools to deal with that anger. And there is a lot of anger built up. And then that is explosions of those anger. And now, not only they did damage and harm to others, they did damage and harm to themselves. And the suffering that they have caused for themselves, the pain they have caused for themselves. So when you think in that way, then you can feel maybe a little bit for them. To be able to differentiate their harmful actions and behavior and themselves. And such their harmful behavior is done not because they have total control over their delusions and then they decided, it's not as they have total control of their mind. They have no control of their anger. If we have control of anger, nobody will want to be in that angry state. Who want to be in that angry state? Once you have experienced that, you know how bad it is. Nobody wants to be in that angry state, but still, we ourselves and a lot of people continue to be in that state time to time. Why? Why? You don't want to be in that state, but still you continue to be in that state because we have no control. We have no control. Certain people have certain skills, certain practice, certain method, how to deal with that. But a lot of people doesn't have that skill, doesn't have that means, how to control that. They don't know, they don't have anger management. They don't know how to manage it, how to deal with that. And when you don't have that managed, you don't know the tools, how to do it, then when it comes, it just explodes. So when we understand that, then, you don't feel so much, so much anger and hateful and that, because you can feel for them a little bit, and you are able to differentiate, distinguish between their behavior, actions, and them as a person. And so in that way of reflecting, contemplating is meditations. And through that way of reflecting, contemplating, then once you are able to, as you do that exercise again and again, many times, slowly, we will be able to differentiate between the persons and persons' actions. At the moment, sometimes it's very difficult for us to differentiate these two things. We don't agree, and that is very harmful behavior and actions, and therefore, these persons who act in that way is, object of our anger, hatred, frustrations. But once we are able to distinguish and differentiate the actions and the persons, then while we might not agree with that action because it's harmful, but still we can feel for the persons. And so therefore not feel so much angry and upset by that actions, that behavior towards that. Because if something's falling from the sky, we wouldn't be so upset and angry. Let's say, while I was walking, big hail falls from the sky on my head. There's pain and discomfort, but still I wouldn't be so upset and angry with the sky. I wouldn't be so upset and angry and holding that angry and always thinking, oh, this sky, you have been throwing me all this hell. Holding there for days, weeks, months. We don't do that, do we? So same way, if we can differentiate the persons on other side, when you imagine if someone throw that hell to me, I will be very upset. Hit me with that hell, I will be very upset. And so when we are able to differentiate persons and actions, and that actions is a result of that person's anger and not the person itself. So it is then almost like No reason to get upset to that anger. We get upset to the person, but to the anger is just like falling from that sky. That is how it is. Delusions. But to be able to differentiate in that way, we need to do that kind of exercise, that practice meditations, that kind of contemplating, that kind of analysis again and again, many times over the time that therefore we get so used to it to be able to differentiate all the time. And when you are able to differentiate, then it will be much more easier not to feel so negative towards the persons. So I guess the time is kind of running. So maybe we can, so that is one of the exercise. That is one of the meditations. That is one of the way of analyzing to kind of be more patient and less angry and less negative towards the persons by being able to differentiate and by being able to separate the persons and persons' harmful behaviors. Okay. So if there is any questions, please, I can take one or two questions. If there is any questions. Okay, if we don't have questions, comments, that is also fine with me. I don't mind that too.
I think so. Jackie has one.
Yes, please, Jackie.
It's not really a question, but I just really love you reminding and clarifying what patience is. It's an undisturbed mind. And that's really helpful, Geshe. It's so helpful. But on the other hand, I probably never had a bit of patience in my life, by that definition. And the best I can do, of course, is just turn that other cheek, just pretend, restrain my speech, restrain my body. And I'm lucky when I can do that.
So not only, I think the next will be not to hold and let it go. That is the thing, So even though maybe your mind was disturbed, for the moment, but you don't have to hold on that for a long time. And is how to let it go as soon as possible. And so I think that is one of the important and key to do that is despite trying our best, sometimes our mind is disturbed, agitated, but as long as we don't hold that for a long time, the pain isn't so bad. But the longer we hold on that, the more painful it is. And yeah, okay.
Yes. Geshe, on the same vein that, oh, sorry.
Yes,
the same, is that you talking to me? May I clarify?
Yes.
Sorry. Is it better then at my level to just get a little angry, let it go, do the analysis 5-10 minutes later, then to hold on to the grudge? Are you saying that making a grudge, holding on to it, that's the worst? Am I understanding you correctly?
Yes. When someone does something and even your mind is disturbed, you don't respond, as you said. Instead of you show the other cheeks, okay? But still, as we mentioned, or even you don't show the other cheeks, at least you don't try to fight back. You don't try to fight back, but definitely your mind is disturbed. So that is good start. Not to response from the state of anger and hatred that disturb mind. Because when we respond with that disturbed mind, a lot of time is not a good response, healthy response. So therefore, not to respond that moment, but then go and then reflect and contemplate, and then trying to reduce your mind that is being disturbed, agitated, because it's still bothering you. So then to let it go. So you try to reflect, contemplate, and so then through that reflecting, contemplating, maybe you might be able to let it go. Or maybe you might not be able to let it go, but still maybe your feeling is maybe less intense than before, and then so if you are able to do that, even that is some progress. If we can reduce the intensity of the disturbing minds, intensity of that, if we can reduce that intensity, that is a good progress. And if we can let it go soon without holding for hours, days, weeks, and months, is the best. Because as long as that feeling of anger and hatred is there, disturbed mind is there, each time is painful. Each time you visit, each time you think about it, each time it is always painful. So the sooner we are able to let it go, the less painful it is that we don't have to revisit again and again that painful experience. And so therefore that is definitely, that's where we start, Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe. And I really enjoy thinking of this. You mentioned tools. I like the idea of tools that, maybe through listening and learning some of this stuff, we can pick up some tools that help us cope with things. And so maybe some other people might not have those tools. And so that's the compassion, so I really like the idea of tools. Thank you.
Yeah, even for us, even we know the tools, still is not easy. Even we know the tools, we have the tools to apply, still not easy. And most of the people in the world, they don't have those tools. They don't have those tools. They are not aware of that there is a tool. And so imagine, imagine even us who have the fortune to meet the Dharma and to learn those tools, and not only learn, trying to apply a little bit, practice, even with that, still is not easy. And so those without tool, it's extremely difficult. Yeah. So we do the dedications. Okay, Shantidevas. May all beings everywhere plagued by suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtues of my merit. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depressions. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food, may the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicine be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments. Whatever disease they are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightening cease to be afraid and those bound be free. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And we can also dedicate for ourselves and all sentient beings to be able to actualize the bodhicitta mind and the wisdom as quick as possible. And through that, to be able to achieve fully enlightenment and liberate all sentient beings to that enlightened state. May all the holy beings have long life, all their wishes, noble deeds be fulfilled without any obstacles. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Geshe. We'll return tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Yeah. See you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Okay. Take care.
Thank you, Geshe.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.